This interview will be held between myself, Julie Stratford, on Sunday the 23rd of August 1992 with Mrs. Fairlie Davey, who lives at 13 Hunter Close, Druin, Victoria. By 1930 you were 15. What were you doing at 15? Were you at school or working?
No, there was no work. It's a far bigger depression than we ever got here, ever had here.
When did you leave school?
I left school at 15. In those days, there were very few children went to high school. There weren't the high schools, only in the big towns, and the students had to find their own way, pay their own way on public transport or somewhere to get there. Well, being one of 6 children, I didn't have a hope. In those days they believed in educating the boys and not so much the girls. So Dad was managing a wheat and sheep farm, and Mum was catering for all these shearers and haymen and everything, so I was sent home to help Mum. That was my bit. Yeah. Well, we didn't go to high school. At the 6th grade, you could go for a certificate called qualification. And you passed that. Then you did use the 7th grade, that's what?
When you were about, what,
First
12
form,
or something?
Yeah, 13 or 14. That's about first form in high school now. Well, then 8th grade, you did the merit certificate. And any job you went for, they demanded the merit. That was a certificate they demanded.
So you had to get that at least?
I got the merit, yes, I got the merit. And then, of course, there was no way I would go on to high school, so I left to help Mum.
So what did that involve? Domestic work?
Yes, cooking, serving, washing up, all sorts of, well, she had 6 children.
Yeah. Did you say it was a sheep farm?
Sheep and wheat.
Oh, wow. So they were all the workers?
Yeah, about 600 acres. And anyhow, then when the real depression set in, there wasn't the same work or anything, the shearers and that. The men were walking the roads. There was no pension. There was no...
There was the dole, though, wasn't there?
There was no dole. No dole in those days. And the old age pension was £1 a week.
That wouldn't go very far.
No. Anyway, old age pension was £1 a week. Basic wage was £4 a week in those days. And there was no such thing as dole. Anyone out of work had to just put up with it. Most of the people that fell badly out of work, if they happened to be renting a house in Melbourne or somewhere like that, they couldn't afford the rent. So they usually went out into the country and shared with a relative, to save paying the rent.
Did that happen to you? Did you have any relatives come out?
No. We, anyhow, Dad lost his job on doing the farm. The cousin couldn't afford to keep them all on, and we came back to Druin.
Right.
And then, well, there was no work. You could get a job, housework, minding children, anything like that. You were very fortunate if you got a job in a shop.
Did you actually end up getting a job before you got married?
Just bits of jobs, mainly working here, like social worker sort of, for 10 shillings a week and your lunch. 10 shillings is $1.
How could you live on that?
That's it. And I was the only one that was working.
Out of the 6? Were you the oldest?
No, second eldest. I had a brother older than me and he wasn't working. Anyway, I used to give Mum 50 cents a week for me tea and breakfast. whatever week it's ground, you know. That was and I had 50 cents for myself for a week's work.
So, what kind of things would you spend that on?
Oh, save it up, and things were a good deal cheaper than you'd think, you know.
Did you spend money on sort of dresses so that you could go out or things like that?
Mostly made them.
So what kind of...
Occasionally we'd have a special dress,
Yeah.
but mostly like we went to, people couldn't afford the money to go out.
Yeah.
They,
But what sort of social life would you have then? If you
well, the churches stepped in, and every church had a youth club, and they ran alternate weeks with the other churches. That's social, and they all used to collect there for games and competitions and all that. We had that, and then we'd the same club we'd join together and take a picnic or a lunch on our backs and go hike out to the river or hike up.
and picnics?
Yeah.
So
When the weather was good.
if being in a small country area, then you would know most of the people that you know, if you went to a dance,
Knew them
you know
all.
most of them.
Knew them all.
Yeah. So I suppose, was it a family sort of thing? Did your family go with you, or was it just the young people,
Well, mostly we went in groups.
of young people?
Yeah. Like 2 or 3 of us lived in one street, we'd go there and we'd come home all together.
So what
There
age?
wasn't the danger there is today.
No.
There wasn't the cars.
Yeah.
People travelled by jinker and buggy and horseback and bicycle. You know, there were, and toward the last of the 30s there might have been more cars, but when the big depression came in the 30s, it was only the doctors and big merchants and big, you know,
So
commercial people that had cars.
at what age were you able to go out without your parents to say an evening thing, like a Saturday night social?
16, 17,
Yeah.
as long as we went in a group.
Yeah.
And we had to come home in a group.
Yeah. Yeah. And did your parents know all of your friends? Like they
Oh
knew
yes,
that-
oh yes, oh
So they had a certain amount of control over what you were doing. Was that in Wandon or here in Druin?
Here in Druin,
So how old were you when you came to Druin?
7.
Oh, right. Yeah. So most of your childhood was in Druin?
Well, most of my 30 days were spent in Druin.
Yeah.
In teenage years were spent in Druin.
Oh,
And if you were very rich, you could go to the theatre for a shilling.
yeah.
You know, to the pictures we
Yeah,
called it,
yeah.
the pictures, for a shilling. That was another way. And we used to save up a shilling now and again and go out to Jindervik to a dance. We had a lot of country dances,
Yeah.
and they were only a shilling to get in.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the best way that you would have met people then. I mean, especially if at 16, 17 you're going out to dances, you would have been, I suppose, looking for a husband.
Yeah, well, it just happens, doesn't it? Yeah. You're attracted to somebody or somebody is attracted to you, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah. So, is that, I mean, did you find that your parents were concerned about who you might bring home one time, you know, who
No.
might come calling for you?
No,
They didn't,
no.
they weren't concerned?
No.
What kind of
We
thing?
had a set time.
Yeah.
If we went just down the street shopping, there used to be Friday night shopping. All the town was
Oh,
lit up and
yeah.
everybody collected down the town.
Yeah.
We'd go there and then we'd go to a social, so. But we had to be home by 10 o'clock. If we went to a dance,
Yeah.
we had to be home by 12.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Did
it was
you
a set
ever-
time.
Did you ever go out just with one man? Like, I mean, even once you were engaged or something, did you ever go out?
yes, oh yes.
And there were the same curfews?
Yes.
And what kind of things, do you know what kind of things that your parents were expecting you to find when you're looking for a husband? Like, what would they have liked you to have met?
Oh no, they just, you know, a good, steady, honest man.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's much the same really now.
Yeah, much the same now.
Yeah. And did it matter to you? I mean, if we were talking about depression years, Would it be important about whether they were working, if they had money?
Well, there weren't too many working, were there? My dad was only a labourer, and he used to get money, he used to get work just wherever he could, and there were many, many young teenage boys and 20-year-old boys and that were doing the same. No matter if they had a university degree, they'd put up a fence, they'd cut wood for a feed. They used to tramp the roads with packs on their back.
Just looking for work.
And just go to the farms, you know, the wheat farms or the dairy farms and anything. They'd do anything just to have a meal.
Yeah.
See, they left their wives and little children with the relatives in the country where there was eggs and milk and vegetables.
Yeah.
All the orchardists opened their orchards to the public and let them in to take any apples that had fallen on the ground.
For
and
free?
the same with the potato people, for free.
Yeah.
They had to. Well, they were starved. There was no dough. There was a bread queue. The government, every shire, every town, city, wherever, had a bread queue, and they used to hand out. They used to hand out bread according to how many you had in that family. And there'd be a queue, I suppose 5 or 6 going down the street, waiting for
Did they
bread.
have soup kitchens and things like they do now? Soup kitchens where you go and get a meal?
The Salvation Army were marvellous. You know, they used to take in any clothes at all. You see, there was no dole. And if a garment wouldn't fit a 14-year-old because it had shrunk up, it'd fit a 9-year-old. And anything that was warm, anything they could get. You very seldom saw a new garment on anybody.
Or even when you're going out to school, to the dances, the church dances and things like that, you weren't wearing fancy clothes.
Just
with lace.
ordinary, everyday washing frocks. We made ourselves mostly because it was cheap. It's just to buy material making stuff.
Well, what about luxury things?
There were some rather funny-looking garments walking around because not everybody's gifted in that way, and but nearly everybody made their own children's clothes.
What about luxuries? Did you ever have things like stockings and makeup and things like that?
Oh yes, but not a great deal. You know, just enough. But we never wore makeup to the socials and hikes and barn dances.
Is that
things
because
like
it wasn't available or it wasn't fashionable?
No, it was too dear to buy. We couldn't afford it.
What about the age? Were you allowed to wear things like that at 16? Like you're allowed to wear heels?
There were no nylon stockings to start with. We wore cotton stockings, and they lasted longer than nylon. But nylon stockings didn't come in until the middle of the war, and that was in the 40s.
Oh yeah.
You see?
Yeah. So you just had those cotton ones with the seam?
Yeah, that's right, up the back.
Oh, yeah.
A straight seam, and if you were a bit bandy-legged, you put the seam on the inside of it, so it didn't show.
Well, what were
And as for perms, there were no such thing.
with your hair?
They couldn't afford it.
So what did you do?
Only the rich ladies had a perm.
Did you curl it?
Yes, we used to curl it. Every Saturday afternoon, you know, we'd come home from, if we worked, we'd come home and have a shower and wash our hair and set it all up and curl us for the night.
For the night out. Goodness, bit different.
Yeah, also it's different. And, they just couldn't afford it.
Yeah. So I think that
The people, the Salvation Army used to give out clothes that were sent to them, like a pair of much used men's trousers, and the ladies would take them and they'd unpick those trousers and press them out and cut out a little pair of boys' pants, you know. In those days, the flour used to be sold in calico bags, and the CWA and people like that quickly found a way of getting all that print off.
So
and they were
used the
soaked and
fabric.
washed, and
Yeah.
they soon went down nice and soft. And they were used for the young ones' undies, lining little boys' trousers,
Yeah.
tops for little girls' skirts.
Yeah.
I used many of them myself. But if we could get a skirt, you know, a woman's skirt that someone threw out, and unpick it all and wash it and spread it out and cut out perhaps a couple of little skirts with the flower just around neck, and, you know, like a little bodice, and they button straight down the back. And then you undid all the buttons and laid it out flat, and it was simple to iron. All the pleats.
Even ironing would have been different, wouldn't it?
Oh,
I mean, you didn't
yes.
exactly have the old handbook.
No, we had flat irons.
They electric.
I had flat irons until we got electricity when Glennis was born in 1946. It was the first time I had electricity.
So these were the metal irons that you put on the edge of the stove.
Yes, that's right. You put them on a heat. We used to have wood stoves. We put them on the stove, and then we'd always have a big lump of cloth and give him a good polish up. And we had a little metal thing to stand it on the blanket.
Yeah, I've seen that. So if you're getting ready to go out to a dance and you had to iron and curl your hair, it would take all afternoon.
Yeah, mostly. Oh, and do our bit of washing.
Yeah. Goodness me. It's not quite the same.
No. Anyway, oh yes. Oh, God.
So do you think, did you have, I mean, you lived at home until you got married, is that right? You lived at home
yes,
until
I
you
lived
got
at home,
married?
yes.
Was it common for girls to live away from home?
Very
before
seldom.
marriage?
There were a few nurses. A few of the girls couldn't get work, so they went in nursing. And they sort of had nursing.
But you wouldn't live away from home and set up a house elsewhere?
No, nobody ever did that.
No.
They couldn't afford it.
Oh.
No.
Is it because of the money or because it's just you would consider to be a bad girl to do that kind of thing?
No, I think that, you know, occasionally there were a couple, particularly university kids, that particularly if they had money parents, you know, they'd go and two of them would take a flat in Melbourne and go to uni.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Of course, you know, no
So-
work, not a penny, anywhere.
Yeah,
Good, I bought it, pay rent somewhere,
it's true.
lived at home.
So what sort of differences, like women in the 30s must have had a lot less independence than what they have now.
Yes.
I mean, if you're living at home up until you get married, you must have been under the control of your parents. So was there times when you would resent that, or was it just expected?
No, I think it was just accepted. We all were on the same boat. None of us had any money, none of us had any flash clothes or anything, but you took it for granted.
And
then the wretched war came in, so we had a few years of that.
so your father was the head of the household,
Hmm.
and whatever he said went?
Oh, he pretty well relied on what Mum said too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So do you think your mother had a fair amount of power in
Oh
the
yes,
household?
oh yes,
Yeah.
in the home.
And not having cars must have limited you. Like if you wanted to socialise in country dances and things like that, if you didn't have cars, you wouldn't have been able to go to these places as often as you'd like.
We had what we called Benty's bus. And Benty's bus used to stop in the middle of the town, and anyone could go to the dance for a shilling. Now he'd drive out to Jindabyne or drive to Long Ronnie or drive for a shilling.
Yeah.
And you could go for a shilling.
Yeah.
And, you know, our boys would come along with us and they'd pay their shilling. That's one thing too. Most of the boys had no money, they had no jobs, so we paid our everything.
Paid for yourself.
And wherever we went,
Yeah.
we paid for ourselves.
Yeah. So that was just financial
Yes,
reasons.
just for
If people had money, was it expected that the boy paid?
Yes, yes it was.
What about at the dances? Was there alcohol? And
No.
It wasn't a...
No, it wasn't allowed in.
Mm.
No, it was just a comfy, good, clean, comfy dance.
No sort of rough crowds trying to upset them?
No, none of that, none at all.
What kind of dancing
They
did
were
you do?
beautiful, all old time dancing, you know, waltzes and polkas and all those sort of things, sets and, yeah.
And
We did a lot of dancing before we were married.
and they'd have supper?
Yes, everybody used to bring supper.
Yeah. So is that where you met your husband?
Yeah, that's what I know.
At a
I
dance
met my
or-
husband at the church socials.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we ended up, he went to the same school as I went to, we went to the same Sunday school as I went to.
And did you know him then?
Yeah.
At school?
But, we weren't that interested in one another, but we found that out later. Yes, we met at the socials, you know. You had different games and that you'd have to partner and that, and we usually
Oh. So,
were partners.
how long after you met did you get engaged?
2.5 years.
Is that a long time for
That's
them?
a long time. Oh, it wasn't for then because nobody had any money.
So you had
You
to
know,
wait for these
there wasn't
things.
any hope of getting married. 2.5 years. And
How long were you engaged for?
2.5 years.
But how long after
no. We were engaged in the September and we were married in the February.
Oh, so you had a short engagement, but you knew each other all that time. Oh, yeah. So, when you started going steady for 2.5 years, what kind of social things do you do then? Like, what do you do with a fiancé to go out? Do you do the same things as you would with your friends?
That's the same thing, yeah.
Because you wouldn't be allowed to go off to
Yes.
places on your own.
Oh yes, we were allowed to go as a couple if we wanted to. Yeah. We often went as a four,
Oh, yeah.
but we were allowed to go as a couple, just a
right.
couple.
And what about engagement? Did you have a big party like they do now at engagement parties?
No, we just had a quiet family do.
Yeah. Well, do you remember what year did you get married in?
35.
35. So the depression was almost over?
Yes, it was. It was pulling out.
Mm.
By 37 it was pretty well out and people were beginning to hope. And then the darn war came in. The Second World War went.
Yeah.
At first they asked for volunteers and then they couldn't get enough men, the war got worse, and so they put in conscription.
Yeah.
And they were all conscripted. Anyone that had 2 boys working on a farm, one of them had to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Well, I suppose that's where you were lucky to find a farmer who was allowed to stay.
Yes, that's right. I was lucky.
Actually, when you did, when you met and started going out together, did the fact that he had a farm, did that make a difference? Like, was that a
Not
bonus
much,
for you?
I don't think so.
I mean, it would have been.
We were just attracted to each other and were great partners in everything we did, and you know.
Danced well together.
Yeah, dancing and socials and whatnot.
Because I imagine if all these men are wandering the roads trying to get work, that you'd be lucky to find a fella that had steady work on his family farm.
That's right, that's right. It was.
And how did your parents react? Did they like him?
Yes, they liked him. They liked him very much, yeah.
You're lucky.
Mm.
Oh, that's good.
He used to play cricket and football for the town,
Yeah.
and every Saturday night he came home for tea.
Did you play sport at all?
Not a lot, no. I concentrated on the youth club and the guides.
Oh, that's right, you're in the guides.
I started the first brownie group in Druin.
Oh, yeah.
And I had the brownies.
You were a
Saturday
brownie leader?
afternoon. Yeah, brownie leader. Brown owl.
Yeah. When was that?
Before I was married.
Yeah. So what did that involve? Getting a
I went to the
young
guides
girls?
myself, like I went as a guide and then a ranger and then
Well,
into the leaders.
What kind of things would you do as... Did you go off camping or
Oh
just
yes.
when you were in the guides?
Yeah, in the summer, yes, we used to go camps, you know, out to Glen Cromie and out there on the river, you know. We all lived in tents and we all had ground sheets and we set a big hip hole and we had a pillow and we had a hip hole dug in the ground and then a plastic sheet and a blanket, and that was our bed. Of
And,
course, we camped in the summer.
oh, yeah.
Mm.
But
It's
in the
good
tent.
holiday. Yeah,
Yeah.
in tents.
Yeah. 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 What about, I haven't got too many questions. What about your wedding? If the country had been in depression, there wouldn't have been a lot of money for fancy gifts and dresses and things
No,
like that.
but people weren't, didn't feel mean in giving, you know, you things like saucepans or linen or, you know, things like that.
Is that the kind of thing that you got? Kitchen
That sort of thing you got.
domestic things?
Kitchen things and
Yeah.
linen, you
Yeah.
know, towels and sheets, pillowcases, that sort of stuff.
And what sort of wedding did you have?
White wedding. I had a sister and a bridesmaid, a little phone bearer,
Yeah.
and we were married in the Presbyterian church down here.
Yeah.
And
Did you have a reception?
yes, Mum put on a reception in our old home.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Did you have many people?
it used to open. We had about 70, I think.
Goodness, that's fairly right. And your mother catered for all of them?
And her friends.
Oh.
She had a couple of friends that lived near. They came over and took it over.
And what about your dress?
It was
Was it
white
Was it a
crepe.
new dress that you went and bought, or did you make it?
I made it.
Oh, right. So how long did it take
With
you?
a cowl neck, and it was white crepe. And then a lace veil,
Yeah.
and little applique things.
And you made all that?
Hmm.
How long did it take you?
Oh, 6 months.
The whole engagement? So how long did it take to organise the whole wedding?
Oh, not a lot. Not a lot. It was quite good.
Yeah. And you immediately went down to the old house to live, did you?
Yes. We built that little place.
Oh,
When we were married, Dad's father, Granddad's father, gave him that 35 acres because he'd been helping on the farm since he left school. He went to high school
oh.
to Warrata High.
Yeah.
He used to ride a pony up. There's no other way of getting there, in the rain and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he gave him that 35 acres down there. So we cleared it when we were engaged, the summer before we were married, like from October. We were engaged in September, and during that summer, we used to go down every weekend and plant vegetables. Well, we had no money and not much hope of getting much money, and we planted a big land of potatoes and tomatoes and, you know, onions and all sorts of things. Every weekend we'd go down and plant it, and we lived on that when we were married. And my mum, having all the others to do for, did go?
Yep.
My mum gave me my wedding, and then she gave me 6 laying pullets. And yeah, well, we lived on those eggs.
That was a wedding present? So practical, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
oh
great.
yes, it had to be in those days.
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
no glamour about it.
No.
No, we took a tent and car and went up into the mountains for our honeymoon.
Right. You went camping?
Yeah, we went camping right up round through. Oh, there were cows to milk, and we couldn't stay away very long. We only had a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you feel getting married? Were you nervous?
No, I was used to public again.
Really?
They were all my friends.
Oh, that's true. Had most of your friends gotten married already?
Yes, they've all been married.
How old were you when you married?
20.
So was that a standard age? Like these days, 20 is quite young.
No,
But
that's the standard age.
Yeah. And so you had...
Oh, you were nearly a spinster if you got to 23 or 4.
Really?
You weren't married. Yeah, an awful lot of the girls got married 18, 19. There was no pill in those days,
Oh,
Julie.
that's true. They had to marry.
You know.
Yeah.
And the parents encouraged them to marry young.
Yeah.
Security.
Yeah. Social things are a bit different, aren't they?
Mm.
Well, if you got married at 20, was the pressure put on you to start having children straight away?
Oh no.
People didn't expect you to have a child in your first year?
No.
Hmm. So what would happen? I mean, if you hadn't married, what would happen to a woman who lived, say she was 25, 30 even, and she wasn't married? Would she be a laughing stock, or was she just...
No, she would just miss someone or other. You know, they were often teachers or...
Yeah. Did people pity them?
No, I don't think so. They were just taken for granted. Some of them married a chap who'd been married before, and married up, later in life and that.
Well, did you ever worry about being a spinster?
No, never. No.
Would it have worried you if you had been?
Oh, I might have been. Didn't seem to worry me, no.
Yeah. So when was your first child born?
July. And I was 21.
Oh, right. So it was fairly soon after. So...
And then we had 3 years and we had your mum. 3.5 years we had your mum. And we had 2.5 years we had Uncle Graham. And then 3.5 years we had Auntie Glenn.
And that's getting right into the 40s then, wasn't it? Because that was right through the war.
46, yeah. I had 2 during the war. Your mum and Uncle Graham. During the war. And they were sad times, Jill. Oh, God.
Especially with your brothers at war
They were terrible. Poor old mum.
Well, where did your family live after you got married? Did they live close by?
Yes, Albert Road. You know, I don't suppose you would know.
No.
Coming out of the town, you go down a steep hill, past the state school, and then down a steep hill. Well, over on the right, there's a road going off up there.
Oh, up there. So were you expected to go and visit them all the time, or did they come to your new house? Or?
Oh, they used to come down now and again, yeah. Dad bought an old overland car, an old second-hand one, and they used to get about a bit, pick us up, and we'd go over to Lilydale to see my grandma and grandpa. They lived at Lilydale.
When did you get your first car?
When Nola was born, yes, when Nola was born, when your mum was
40.
born. A little Ford Ute. And we all used to pack into the cabin and go to Warrigal shopping.
What about on the farm though? Surely you had tractors and things like that?
Oh yes. Horses, mainly horses.
Yeah.
Big horses,
It would have been hard work for a farmer's wife as well.
Oh yes, when we were first married, I cut all the maize for the whole year, put into silage.
By hand?
Yes, by hand. With a sledge in there. Put it into bundles and put it aside, and then Dad come along and picked it up, stacked it in for silage.
Still, I suppose you weren't a stranger to hard work if you'd been helping your mum.
Bev used to be in a pram under a shady tree. I'd not often go and see her and go back in. Put in some hard yakka down there.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Was it worth it?
Of course it was. It's all fun. It's all part of life. Everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah.
Oh, for a long, long time it must have been. Yes, because when your mum was born, we got the old ute. But then after that, we had a baby and an old horse. But of course, we could only afford to feed one horse, so that horse was being used for harrowing the paddock and ploughing fish.
As well.
We walked.
Oh, yeah.
I would put the baby in the pram, go in and get me weekly shopping, take the baby. In the middle of the town there was a park, and in it was what they called a rest room, where mothers could take their little children and light a big fire, and there was a big table with about 8 chairs around it, while the fathers were at the cattle sales, for people that came in from way out. So we'd go over there and I'd take the baby out and load all the groceries into the bottom of the pram and put the waterproof on, put the baby back and walk home a mile and a half.
Not a lot of time to sit around and file your nails, was there?
Nope. They'd walk to school from down there,
Yeah.
about 1.75 miles every day.
From what age?
5. Poor little baby used to walk to school. Up. Dad used to go and meet her with a bike, Dinko and a bike, and she'd get really hot. You don't have to, Daddy, I can walk.
That's a long way for a 5-year-old.
Yes,
Every
it
day.
is. Yeah, but there was no danger then, Jules.
Yeah.
The days are very different
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, you wouldn't let a child
You
that age
couldn't-
wander the
You,
streets.
you couldn't afford to.
Mm. Mm.
No, you couldn't afford to.
Totally different.
Oh, no, our children here, they used to go to the pictures, a whole lot of them. Pick up 3 or 4 over here in the house and hope they'd go to the pictures.
Mm. But that's what you used to do too, isn't it?
But they used to, they'd get a shilling each. 9 was to get in and 3 for lollies.
Mm.
Oh, what they ever.
You said that if you had money you could go to the cinema in the 30s. What kind of movies were they? Was it just the silent ones or was
Black
talkies?
and white, mostly black and white.
Talkies?
Talkies.
Yeah,
No, in the early 30s they were talkies.
yeah.
And, I suppose I would be about 16 when movies came in, when talkies came in.
Right.
But these were just pictures. And in between the pictures there'd be all what it was about. And you'd have to read it. Yeah.
What, not moving?
No sound. Oh yes, it
Oh,
was moving.
black
yeah.
and white.
Yeah, you'd
Yeah.
get the picture,
Yeah.
and they'd tell you what it was about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then get the picture, and they'd tell you what it was about.
And did you have
read
a
it quick.
piano, someone playing a piano or something like that?
Yes, someone in the back,
Yeah.
the back of the stage played the piano.
Piano, yeah.
Oh,
And what
it's
about,
perfect.
so, do you remember people like Rudolph Valentino?
Oh yes, yes, they were,
Well, that was a bit before your time, wasn't it? Valentino, that was the 20s.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, were there any great movie stars that you remember? Like
I
anyone
couldn't
that,
remember. I couldn't remember that far back.
no one that you sort of read about and idolised? No great movie people? What about music? Did you have radio?
Well, very shortly after we married we had radio, and I think they had radio before we were married.
Mm. So what kind of things did you
Radio.
listen to?
Hmm?
What did you listen to?
All sorts of pop music or whatever. Talks on this and that. And
Do you have any favourite?
no, I can't remember that far back. Since
Didn't have
only
any-
50 odd years.
That's true, it's a long time. So you didn't have any favourite pop stars or
No,
you know,
no.
not the same as it is now?
We went through the stage when, Bing Crosby and all
Oh,
those
yeah.
sort of.
That wasn't the 30s, was it?
No, no, that was further in.
Yeah,
wartime.
Oh,
No, long time ago. A very long time ago. It's almost like a dream, isn't it?
yeah, well, it's obviously a totally different lifestyle.
56 years we've been married.
When's your wedding anniversary?
8 to Feb.
So it was summer?
Summer.
Was it a hot day?
Really hot.
Was it?
Really hot day.
Everybody sat in the church and fanned themselves?
Yeah. Oh yes, and in those days the bride used to wear white gloves, and so did the groom.
Oh yeah.
And when I wanted to get them off to put my wedding ring on, I couldn't put the damn things off. The perspiration had stuck.
no.
You're supposed to take your glove off and hand it to your bridesmaids, you see.
Oh,
Yeah,
did you
put the
hold
ring-
flowers? Did you have flower bouquets?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Had, oh dear.
So you would have had to save up a fair bit of money
Hmm.
to have a wedding.
Oh no, one of the neighbours I made the frock and one of the neighbours did our flowers. And some, all our mates decorated the church. And
What about the suits, the men's suits? Did they just have their own suits anyway?
yes, they had dark suits. Dark suits. Almost everybody had a dark suit in those days.
So had some of your friends already gotten married by the time you did?
Oh yes, a few of them. Oh yes, some did, some didn't. You know how it is.
Did you all start having children together? Like, did you have friends with children the same age?
Yes, about the same age. Yeah. All went to the same school.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said before, you'd know everybody.
Yeah, everybody. I knew every house in Druin and who lived in it. Now I don't know any of them.
Well, how many lived here then? Did
Huh?
you? How many people would have lived in Druin?
I wouldn't have a notion. Oh, I suppose it was. What is it now? 5,000?
About 4,000 now. I think it was about 4,000.
Yeah, that'd be about 3, I think. Because, we know, Druin, when there was houses that were pulled down and new houses put up and streets put in here and streets put in.
Does the main street look very different?
Oh yes, well you see, it was constructed for horse traffic. And down in the gully in the main street there was a big water trough to water your horses. And there were a lot of horse-drawn vehicles, jinkers and buggies and things. And there was an occasional funny looking car. But there weren't many. People didn't have money for cars.
No. Did you ever actually ride a horse?
Oh yes.
It wasn't unladylike or?
No.
I suppose practicality.
No. I used to ride when we were up on the sheep and wheat. I used to ride a horse everywhere.
Do you have to ride side saddle?
Oh no.
It's normal.
Past that stride, yeah. But in those days, there was no such thing as slacks or jeans.
So you
Even
had to
the
wear
little
dresses.
girls never wore long pants.
Yeah.
No. Little
What
girls
would
wore
happen if
dresses
you
and
did? I
skirts.
mean, would you be considered?
Well, it was never thought of.
Oh, yeah.
No. And
So how would you ride a horse
most
in
of
a
the
dress?
girls wore skirts and dresses. There were no such thing as slacks. The slacks came in during the war.
And what about dress lengths? Like they would have been fairly long.
Oh yes, they were long.
Because in the
About the
20s
same
they were
as they
shorter,
are.
weren't they? During the 20s the dresses were a lot shorter.
That's right, yes,
And then
yes,
they
they
went long
were
again?
shorter, yes. Well, then they took a turn then and went long. And they were calf length when I was a teenager, going to dances and going around.
What was your wedding dress full to the floor, or was it?
Oh yes, full to the floor.
I must see some photos. I don't think. Have you got any wedding photos?
No,
You didn't have any taken.
nobody had any cameras. That was the trouble. We had we took some snaps and a chap came around after we'd been married a few years and took the snap away and made a big wedding photo for us for £10.
Yeah.
And that's it, so in the hall.
Oh,
Yeah, wedding photo, but no, nobody had a camera. We just couldn't afford to have cameras in those days. They've gone ahead wholesale since then.
they have. And sitting in the dark.
Yeah.
I can't think of much else to ask you.
No, I can't think of that, but tell you
It's all
about
right.
it all.
Such a long time ago. And I suppose one of the things I was interested in finding out was things like, what's expected, what was the social expectations.
Oh,
like.
we went in groups, and as long as we went in groups, right. But if you were engaged, you could go together, or you could go with another engaged couple.
Yeah. You never went off together on your own? You wouldn't have been allowed to do that?
No. Mainly because there was no money.
Yeah.
You know, we went to things like church socials and all sorts of hikes and picnics and...
Were there any, I mean you'd know because you're in such a small place, were there any girls that were sent away because they were having babies and they weren't married?
Oh, I suppose there were, I don't remember. There's been that right down through my grandmother's days.
Yeah, true.
There's
So you
always
don't know
been
of
a
any,
few.
there
No, I
weren't
don't
any
know.
single parents living
No,
here?
there's no single parents. There was no single mothers,
No.
you know, what do you call it?
Pension?
Pension. There was no single mother's pension
No.
in those days. In fact, that's only come in the last few years. Really.
Yeah. So what would happen? Their babies would be taken away from them, or they'd be forced to
Well,
get married?
either the parents of the girl reared them, or they were put up for adoption.
Mm.
There were plenty of people that just couldn't have a baby. You know, there are still today a lot
Yeah.
of people that can't have babies.
What was
Something
the
goes
story?
on.
What would happen if someone chose not to? I suppose you didn't really have the choice in your 30s, did you? If you chose not to have babies.
Mm.
If you couldn't have babies, I mean, would people pity you? Would they think you were being
Yes,
selfish?
yes. No, they pity you, but not because you were selfish.
Mm. I suppose the expected thing was that you get married and you have a house and you